Hi everyone, thank you for joining me. Today I've got another experience. This time it isn't a near-death experience, but it is still an experience of someone's encounter with the other side. They've taken a different route to get there. They've taken, I think, some mushrooms. So everyone's going to have a bit of a different opinion as to whether that makes it a valid experience with the afterlife. Is it just the drugs affecting the mind and giving the person this experience, or is it a true encounter with the divine? I will let you be the judge, so let's get into the experience now. This one's from someone called Laura, and this experience can be found on the endearth.org website. Hello, dear people of Endearth. Thank you for the work you are doing and for sharing it with us. After reading several beautiful accounts, I decided I wanted to write to you, even though my experience is perhaps a bit controversial. In short, I had a possible NDE from ingesting psychedelic mushrooms. I would like to immediately point out that during the trippy visuals and spiritual encounters, I recognized that suddenly something different happened. While comparing stories to my own history and to other stories, I think this was possibly a near-death experience. A bit of my background. I was born with 3 kidneys and needed surgery to remove 2 of them when I was a baby. This brought me closer to the possibility of dying from a very young age. In my experience, death is on our doorstep, and I've always felt very mortal in this body. In addition, life has 2 sides. There's this knowing and feeling that heaven is and can be on earth. The memory of heaven I consider home and a place to return to. I've had 2 surgeries for different matters, one at the age of 2 and the other at the age of 5. During the first surgery, I had an out-of-body experience. I recall floating above an empty operating room and thinking that this place was way too cold and lifeless for people to heal properly. I didn't have a body and thus no weight, but I was experiencing floating. I spent most of my time there in rest and peace as I was held in a bright light. I felt loved intensely and comfortable and warm. I felt as if the healing as on a soul level was available there. I realized from then on that there is no gone, and I'm never left alone. God is always waiting and ready for me. I began to realize that death was not what people say it was. Although I still feel grief and loss just the same when someone passes. In 2012, I took some hallucinogenic mushrooms for the first time. I had no idea what to expect or how long it would last or what the specific qualities of the plant were. It was said to be healing, and I trusted the people I was with. We made sure we were safe, calm, and in a nice meditative state. All of us were healthy, and no harm could be done. It was part of my spiritual practice. I took the mushrooms, waited, and after a while my sight started to change. I was a bit afraid. I remembered God to stay connected and that I would be safe. I kept asking, God, please show me all of it. Show me the whole thing, the whole truth. I can handle it. I said this, and this was my mantra. Soon, I started to experience intense waves of love that many people have when they take these types of plants. I somehow realized it was all pretty normal for a trip. There were time loops and patterns and beings in the room as well. However, at some point, I really checked out and went somewhere else completely. That's the point where I suspect I was on the edge of dying. My husband told me afterwards that he had wondered about me and simply suspected that I was really far away. I crossed a threshold as if I went over an edge. My vision became broader. I completely lost awareness of my body and I was pure consciousness. I experienced the same floating awareness as during my surgery as a child. I recall being washed over by an intense cloud of love and light. There is no love like that, and I just surrendered to it. I knew I came from a human life, but it didn't really matter. I was simply there, and all was as it should be. There was no conflict. I was not doubting my own existence. There was no such thing as truth as we know it on earth. It was a highly singular moment. Everything existed at once, and nothing was questioned. Time is not part of that realm, as there is no need for time there. I knew I was with God. I was about to get an answer to my question. Show me the truth. I can handle it. God in my consciousness presented itself as a warm, soft, pink, red, orange light cloud that is the most loving and glorious presence I've ever known. I knew it was God, without a doubt, and I realized I had met God before, during the surgery when I was 2 years old, although then it had been a mostly white cloud. The God light contains all the healing there is, and I could only cry in its perfection and love. Within it, I knew that God remembered my question, and God said, /thought, /communicated in a humorous way, "Ah, yes, the truth. What many of you think is that you should brace yourself for the truth when you ask for it." I'll just read that again. Ah, yes, the truth. What many of you think of is that you should brace yourself for the truth when you ask for it. You anticipate the truth as hard to handle, painful, even harmful. Nothing is further from the truth. I was so relieved immediately, but I was also not satisfied. So my awareness started showing God the images of what happened on earth in wars and to animals because of our actions. I asked, what happens on earth when it all falls apart? What happens when it all ends? And God answered in the most loving, gentle, and hopeful way. Have you considered love as an option? With those words, everything was right, good, and perfect. This little sentence is why I needed to be there and what I remember most. I needed to know that love is the only outcome, always. God said, the truth is love, and what you fear most is unconditional love. I felt in my heart that God is also right with our fear, although it will not stop showing us love. God loves us regardless of everything and regardless of ourselves. Every choice we have ever made or will ever make is already accepted. Forgiveness is not even a thing. All of us is already loved and unconditionally granted life, despite our idea to create war. God showed me that many humans live with pets, to be reminded of unconditional love. Humans know love when we feel it, and it is so many things to us. After that, I catapulted into the stars, knew everything about everything, and got a glimpse of human-like beings who lived on a different planet. They seemed to be waiting to help us restore peace on Earth. Then I came back. The funny thing is that I came back to the mushroom trip. It was out of the hallucinogenic experience. I wasn't out of the hallucinogenic experience yet, but even then, I knew something different had happened. Only one time after this have I experienced the godlike cloud. That was when I was in hospital a little later in 2013. I had a very bad inflammation that could have killed me and wouldn't heal. One night I was in so much pain and I felt so close to death, so I started praying and crying. The godlight washed over me again and again. The second day after this night, the two very large inflamed cysts that were in my abdomen were nowhere to be found on the ultrasound. A few days prior, they appeared as big grey monsters. To me, this was a miracle. I will always be grateful for these experiences, and I love life now even more than I did before. So that's the end of her experience. So I guess my initial look at this experience was probably a little bit incorrect because although it is induced by psychedelic mushrooms, she seems to take a extra step away from that psychedelic experience and progress into experience more aligned with a near death experience. So let's go through it again. So she starts off this experience by reliving or writing about an experience she had as a child. She says she was born with 3 kidneys, and the doctors needed to remove 2 of them. And during this experience, she feels that this is the first time she gets to have an out of body experience. So it's incredible that she, remembers this when she's 2 years old, but it sounds very much like this is what has happened. She says she experienced floating, no weight, spent most of her time in this bright white light, felt loved intensely and warm and just safe, like a lot of these experiences go through. Doesn't matter how old you are or how you get to this light, it seems that every time that people do experience it, it's a pretty common thing to have these words thrown around: weightlessness, bright light, just feelings of intense love and peace. And yeah, so this is her first little experience of a near-death type event and taste of the divine. And then a few years later, or it doesn't actually say a few, but I'm guessing, hopefully a good sort of 20 years later, after this incident as a 2-year-old, she decides to take some hallucinogenic mushrooms. Now, I don't know, like for me, I will put my hand up and say I have done this myself before, taken these substances, and I have never got any even close to what this woman describes. Not like on 2 levels, because this, what's her name? This Laura. She says she takes these mushrooms and kind of has this feeling of the experience taking 2 stages. Like the first stage is just like a normal trip. She she describes kind of even knowing that she's in this normal drug-induced high and doesn't really feel as though she's in another realm, but obviously she's still feeling all the effects of the trip, like the patterns are changing, she can sense other beings in the room though. She doesn't go into much more detail than that. She feels these effects that most people have either experienced yourself. I don't know what you've done in your past, but or most people have heard that this is a similar sort of thing to what people go through when they have a trip. But just to stop there and throw back to my personal experience, I have done it a couple of times, and I never really experienced intense waves of love or saw loops or patterns or had these hallucinogenic type experiences. I just felt a little bit different and actually a little bit more confident. And but yeah, it's amazing how these drugs affect everyone differently, and some people will have them and won't feel anything at all. So I don't know what the pathophysiological reason is for that, or it's just everyone. I guess that could be said about all drugs in general. Some people are more susceptible to their effects than others, and Laura here seems to be getting a pretty good buzz off the drugs she's taken, and I guess she's gone into this trip with some good people. She says she's repeating this mantra: God, please show me the truth, show me the whole thing. I can handle it. This is what she's repeating to herself over and over again. And she says she's in a nice, safe, calm, meditative state. And this act of taking these mushrooms, she says, is part of her spiritual practice. Now, I'm not going to be an advocate for doing this sort of thing because it is dangerous, and like I just said, people will have different effects from it. And I guess if you are tempted to know more about this, it would be probably advisable to do it in a similar sort of environment where you're with people and you are in a good frame of mind, and you do sort of keep that in the back of your mind to stay connected to God. Because yeah, I mean, like I said, I did this a long time ago, and a couple of times it turned into what I guess people can call a bad trip. It got pretty scary and dark, and although there were no hallucinations or things like that, it was just it was an unpleasant experience. So it's risky when you take these drugs. You don't know what's going to happen. So I'm not going to advocate for it, but you are your own person, and if you think this would help you on your spiritual journey, that's your decision. So yeah, so she's having this trip. She's feeling pretty good. And then she says she seems to cross a threshold. She seems to lose her connection to this realm altogether. And this is where she loses awareness of her even having a body. And she starts to feel these familiar floating type sensations she had when she was having surgery as a 2-year-old, and then gets washed over by this intense love. Or in her case, God has come to her in the form of a cloud. She says she knows it's God, and this is the form God has taken to visit her. And she is pretty ecstatic to have this connection with God again. I'm just going through here how else she's describing this experience. She says she just surrenders to it. She kind of remembers that she has come from a human body, but doesn't feel any attachment to that human experience, nor does she even really remember what it was all about. She's just very present. She's enjoying this moment and not really, I don't know if thinking about other things is the right word, just allowing herself to be where she is right now and not having any other concerns or conflicts or doubts about who she was or thoughts of that nature. And then she says she has a strange sort of epiphany. She says she starts to think, okay, in this realm, there's no such thing as truth as we know it on earth. Kind of a little bit confused by that statement. I guess it kind of means that in this other realm, there's perfect knowledge, so truth has a different feel to it because anything that's not true is instantly known to be not true. Or I don't know, in a world where there is complete wisdom and knowledge, I guess you know everything, so therefore there is no such thing as fake news or lies or misconceptions. It's all just known, it's all out in the open, so everything is truthful anyway, so there is no even a possibility of something being dishonest or fake or a lie. She says this place is a highly singular moment. Everything exists at once and nothing is questioned. So, and then she adds, like just about every experience I read adds, time is not part of this realm, as there is no need for time here. So, yeah, we get that every week pretty much. I think I've spoken enough about the concept of time and my lack of ability to comprehend it in my mind, which is from a dimension where time is inbuilt to it. Therefore, trying to understand exactly what a timeless environment is like is impossible to comprehend. She says, look, I know I'm with God, and she knows she's about to get this answer to the question she was um, saying to herself as a mantra over and over again when she started this whole truth, which was show me the truth, I can handle it. And then God comes, floats along to her, and like I said before, is in the form of this pinky, reddy, orange type of cloud. And she just sees this cloud, and it is the most loving and glorious presence she has ever known. And she is without a shadow of a doubt, knowing that this is the creator, this is the source, this is the big cheese, this is God. And she has recognition that she's met God before. And she flashes back to when she's 2 years old and saw a similar sort of thing, but remembers when she was 2, she saw this cloud, but at this time it had only been white. There was no colors to it. And she says this cloud is not only just loving, but there's also these healing properties, and just makes her incredibly emotional, and she wants to cry basically at its perfection and its love. And within it, she says that God said, communicated her answer to the question of show me the truth, I can handle it. Now this bit I'll read again word for word because I kind of get a bit confused by what is being conveyed here, and I'd love to get a bit more information from Laura to see exactly what she's trying to say, because words, as we know, have very limited capacity to give much depth to meaning and can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. So this is apparently what God says. Ah, yes, the truth. What many of you think is that you should brace yourself for the truth when you ask for it. you anticipate the truth as hard to handle, painful, and even harmful. And then it ends with a little play on words. Nothing is further from the truth. So I don't know. To me, that means, so when we ask for the truth, I don't know if any of you have kind of prayed or silently thought to yourself in your heads, like, what is this place all about? Like, why are we here? This is kind of what I'm thinking is what is meant by this question in the first place. Show me the truth, I can handle it. Or maybe she means, show me who you truly are, God. Show me everything. So I don't know why God's response is that when people ask for this truth, they brace themselves, they contract, they get fearful. I don't understand this. I guess it's possible people are afraid to hear the truth. They might not deep down want to really know exactly what this is all about. They might be comfortable just plodding along in their normal human existence and not have those more existential questions. So yeah, I'm a little bit confused, and hopefully I'm conveying my confusion accurately. But yeah, I don't know. I guess it's very open to interpretation what exactly is being conveyed here. So so this is God's response. You brace yourself for the truth. You kind of, your mind, your body, your heart is asking for it, but then when you do ask for it, your body kind of contracts and indicates that it isn't really ready. But there is no more detail here, so I can't really give you much more than that. And then Laura says she starts thinking of these images of what happens on Earth in terms of wars and animals and how human behavior is pretty awful in some ways. And she asks God, okay, so this is where humanity is now. This is what we are like as a species. We seem to be on this trajectory that is going to be pretty self-destructive. And so she asks God, what happens when all this ends? And God doesn't answer this question in terms of giving an answer to what happens when it all ends. He offers, I guess, a solution to stopping the suffering and the misery here on earth. And God says, have you considered love as an option? And with those words, she says everything felt right and good and perfect. And I guess when you're in this other dimension and you're talking to the source and God starts talking about love, and you're pretty far removed from this world and this reality we're all in right now, and God starts talking about love, it is going to melt your heart a little bit and put you in a pretty good space. But she says this little sentence is what she needed to hear, and this part of the interaction is what she remembers most. That love is the only outcome, always. So I guess this next sentence kind of answers my confusion as to what this question of show me the truth actually means, because then God adds, the truth is love. And what you fear most is unconditional love. So is that another way of saying God is love, that love is what is at your core, that when you are no longer in this body, that love part of you leaves and reconnects to the source, which is love? Yeah, I guess that's kind of pointing in that direction from my point of view, but I don't get the second part of this statement. What you fear most is unconditional love. And then they go into this in a little bit more depth. They start God says, well, no, then Laura says she feels that God is correct in this statement. We fear unconditional love. So, yeah, I'm having a bit of trouble understanding that bit, but she says that God loves us all, regardless of what we do, what choices we make, who we are as people. So I guess in a way you could say we carry this burden of imperfection around with us, and this barrier almost of self, not hatred, I guess in some cases, but just self-loathing, just not, and this is a barrier to what the unconditional love of the universe is able to offer us if we are able to start loving ourselves a bit more and be more receptive to this unconditional love. And when we do that, we are able to experience the love of God a bit more. And when I say this, it's hard to put into words. Like, I'm just saying this, and it feels, like everyone is going to have their own individual connection to the divine, and that is going to be experienced in so many different ways. And it's hard to put into words exactly what a connection with God is, but when you start feeling that love from the universe, and when you start to see those kind of mystical experiences show up in your life and have no scientific explanation, I guess that's when you know you're on the right track, and you see these little coincidences happen. And this for me is signs from the divine, and in my own personal experience, this is how I feel that communication and connection is happening. But like I said, everyone's going to have a different take on not only whether God is real or not, but what that connection looks like when they do find it. We're all unique and have our own journey, and that journey is going to have different pathways to that spiritual side of who we are. So God, she said, Laura says, God then shows her why humans have pets, because they are apparently there to remind us of unconditional love. And this I can understand and relate to. I don't have a pet, but most people can be 100% themselves around their dog or their cat, and they don't feel like they're being judged. They can just give the love to the animal and accept it too. There's no um, there's no you love me and I'll give you that, or if I do this, you got to love me more. It's just more of a, it's just a free exchange of goodwill, and not at all at all times, but generally speaking, there is, I don't know, this is just my opinion again, like it always is that people will, when they love another human, put conditions on that. And I guess that is what unconditional love is. It's removing those conditions and just loving someone or something, or whatever, for the sake of love. And I think there's a different quality to love in this other dimension that we as humans, as a whole, obviously there's going to be exceptions that have not quite been able to tap into this love that we hear of, that is so prevalent on the other side. But I don't know. I keep an optimistic mind and hope that we can evolve more as spiritual beings and get to that point where we are able to tap into it on a more regular basis, and hopefully, like this experience suggests, use that to, I guess, save the species, because we do seem to be on a pretty negative trajectory a lot of the time. So yeah, and then she gets to go Just going to pause it for a second. And she finishes up getting a glimpse at life on another planet in this universe. So, well, it isn't quite the end, but she says she gets to go and get a glimpse of these other human-like beings who lived on another planet, and they are apparently there wanting to help us, wanting us to help restore peace, but for whatever reason, she doesn't go into it. That's not happening. I wish we got a bit more detail there whenever I get a little bit of a glimpse of people's experiences on other planets. They kind of get a little bit excited because, I'm very keen to know more about that side of it. And after she sees these beings, she feels she crosses back. She goes from this dimension of an NDE type realm back into just a more psychedelic mushroom type realm. So she goes back to, seeing pretty colors on the walls and feeling pretty good, but there's something that feels different. She feels more back in her body rather than a free roaming ball of consciousness. And again, like a year later, she says she ends up in hospital and again gets to experience this God type being wash over her again and again with waves of love. And the next day, the reason she was in hospital for some enlarged cysts that were in her abdomen, they're totally gone. So a remarkable little experience there. Thank you so much from Laura. She's had it all, hasn't she? She's had real NDE. She's had spiritually transformative experiences induced by mushrooms, and she's definitely got this connection and had these experiences with the divine that we would all like to, and why some people get this proof and others don't, it's baffling, but that's just the way it is, and I guess eventually we all find out what the truth is. But yeah, she finishes with a bit of gratitude, saying how amazingly grateful she is for these experiences, as you would be, and says that she loves life with an intense passion now, and goes about her business, with a bit of purpose, and just enjoys being in a human body. And that is the sort of message I like to end on, and hope that we can all get what we are hearing from these experiences as a little bit of motivation and a reminder of what we really are and what we get to go back into, and use this experience as a human to grow, because although it's very hard and challenging, there's an incredibly miraculous nature about being here in this body right now, and it is an incredible thing to be alive in the physical realm, and although it has its fair share of darker moments, there's plenty to be grateful for, and knowing that this physical life we're all living now is just a temporary thing is reassuring, and it's nice to know that eventually we do get to be removed from the negative side of humanity, and guess we can use this experience however we want to, if it's a learning experience, if it's just to see what human and being a human is like, whether it's just to learn what it feels like to have these negative forces in your life on a regular basis, whether it's to know what it's like to live in a body that only has a finite life and isn't going to last forever. These things I'm saying now go back to the question of why we are here, and what is the purpose of this life. And the more I sort of look into this and read these experiences and study my spiritual books, I begin to see that there is no real set answer, because everyone seems to have a different explanation to the reason for our existence, and it's probably a whole variety of things rather than just one set reason. So yeah, I don't know, you think about it, and the answers you have are probably the most valid. So who knows, everyone's going to have their own take on this experience and why we are here. But thank you for joining me. Just a short little episode today. I love to have you on this journey with me. I hope it brings you whatever you need, whether that's just a break from the physical world we are in just for a short amount of time, or hopefully, or maybe it even offers you a different perspective and some answers as to this, the reason for this life. So yeah, thank you. I love you. Wishing you a state of inner peace and harmony that is not reliant on external factors to give you that feeling of peace that we all require and need and crave. So yeah, look forward to talking to you next week. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.